Hello, and welcome back for another shell challenge video today. I'm excited to show y'all what I did for my half-baked shell challenge. And if you're new here and you've not heard that before, I'm happy to show y'all what this is. Now, essentially, I think a lot of us are used to the usual shell challenge in The Sims where like maybe someone does something like this that's a little bit tragic, for lack of a better word, and they make you have to work with it, and you can't change the shell of the house on the outside. Like, pretend this wall isn't here and like just say that's our shell. You can't change that, but you can literally do anything else for the most part. Now, the added layer to this is that usually with these half-baked shell challenges, the idea is that it's a half-baked idea. So I like to go in and I will actually maybe place some internal walls, and then I also end up placing like random objects, like maybe you have to use this light, or maybe I'll just stick a bed right here, or I could do something diabolical like put a cabinet just in the middle sideways like this. The idea here is that you cannot move the bed. You cannot change the swatch of the bed. You have to use this swatch and you have to leave the bed where it is. Essentially, there's just this added design and layout layer to the challenge where you have to work with what I give you and you can't do anything about it. Now, I know some of y'all get creative though, so you can, but I'm not gonna say how. And a lot of y'all love these because it is that added layer of challenge that I think makes it more fun than the usual shell challenge. And also, in a way, with the shell challenges, they're still so open-ended. If you're someone who's uncomfortable with just a blank slate, this makes it slightly easier because it's like, well, I give you some colors that you maybe would want to incorporate around the house, so you don't have to overthink it too much, but I do things that are maybe slightly evil that you have to work with. So I'm going to stop talking about it and just get into it here. So this is called the Tragic Clown Shell Challenge, and the idea with this was just simply because one of our mods, Leah, wanted, or rather suggested at least, that we have the tragic clown painting in the house, and I liked that idea. I hadn't used it before, and so I ran with it, and that actually became the theme of what I ended up doing with the shell itself. I always make everything with base game, by the way, so you don't have to worry about packs being included or objects like that. That way everyone can do the half-baked shell challenges, and it's a really nice way to learn about some objects that maybe you've forgotten about or that you don't usually use, because I think those of us who have a lot of DLC, we lean heavily on using it because we spent money on it. And so oftentimes whenever I build, I use DLC way more than base game, and I always make a funny comment whenever I find something. I'm like, oh, and it's base game whenever I'm streaming or something, because it's just like not something I usually gravitate toward. Now, I know they've been having some base game updates that have some really fun things and updated objects, which is very much needed, but I always think it's fun to use things that you normally wouldn't use. And I will say that you just saw me put that lava flooring. That was the worst part for me. I hate that I put that in this shell challenge. I don't know why I did it. I honestly wish I hadn't done it. I suffered with you all, and you will see what I do with it, and I actually didn't cut out a lot of the footage. I wanted you all to see that I struggle with my own shell challenges sometimes because I want to challenge myself as well whenever I make these. I always like to do the shell myself. I don't like just putting the challenge out there and just wait for y'all to do it. I like to do it as well, and we like to hang out on stream whenever we're working on it. So if you want to join in on this, we are going to be touring the shells on October 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And so you just need to make sure you upload it to the gallery using hashtag halfbakedclown. I'll go over that a bit later in the video too, but I did want to just go ahead and put that out there right now. It is on the gallery. You can search for it with my username, Dr. Sims, with 3 S's at the end. But I'm getting to the point to where we have the basic shell just about laid out. You might notice I put a roof piece. I'm really sorry, y'all. I know that might have been a little bit difficult to work with, but it was fun, right? So now I'm actually like starting to work on the shell itself. You'll see how much I struggled with this roof. So with the roof piece, I had a couple of ideas. We have this like kind of bump out in the front that has more of a rounded roof part, and I was like, okay, that's a bit easier at least because we do have a roof that fits that shape. But I was struggling with what to do on the middle part of the house. I was wanting to do something a little bit quirky with it, and I think part of that was just because I had the clown painting in there, so I was wanting to do something funky right off the bat. And so I was like, what if I use some of these like half gabled and then like maybe use a half hipped piece? Like I was trying all of the different pieces that I could, and I wasn't really liking the way it was turning out. So I ended up going with something a bit different that took me a while to get there, but this ends up being closer to the actual roofing outline that I used. And it actually worked really well to have a bigger piece overlaying the roof piece that I had put there for us to use. So, you know, I'm sure a lot of y'all ended up doing that. that part that just sticks out at the front actually looks fine with the way that the house is structured and the shape of it. So I didn't mind that at all. I ended up just using this as the front of the house. I'm curious to know if any of you all end up using any other side as the front. I love seeing stuff like that. I just think shell challenges are a really fun way to not only see the creativity in our community, but also just how drastically different we think about things whenever we're building and just even designing for it being a half-baked shell challenge. So that's what makes it even more fun is we start off with even some of the same color swatches of things, and then you still end up with entirely like drastically different spaces. So I was finally getting the outside of this figured out. I was going more like the stuff that we get with Get Together. I wanted it to be a little bit like dark on the outside. We're still in the spooky season, right? We're in the midst of it. So I was wanting something to go with the clown vibes with that. And I thought it would be fun if the outside was a bit darker, and then maybe on the inside is where we can get some nice fun pops of color. Now that ends up changing a little bit as I do the landscaping part of it outside, but essentially with the house, I wanted just like a little bit, not necessarily gothic energy, but I wanted it to be a little dark with some stonework and have this Tudor style, but with the black colors. Now I ended up just rounding out the kitchen here. I had placed that one cabinet in the middle of that back wall. So it makes it a little bit tricky to work with, I feel like, with how you want to lay this out. I almost considered putting a door to the backyard off of that side on the sink, and I was like, it doesn't look right on the very edge of the house. So I ended up not doing that and opted to do something a bit funkier that you'll see a little bit later in the video. So now I'm like putting some of the foundation up outside and getting the stairs figured out. I went back and forth a lot because we were working on this during my streamathon. So if it looks like I'm going from one area to a completely different one, it's because I was spinning a random wheel, and like I had a random wheel generator, and every hour or so I would spin it and we'd just shift to a different build altogether. So there were times whenever I'd go from this one and go to another build, and then we'd come back to this one eventually later in the day. And so I was just like, I didn't always pick up right where I left off. So if you're wondering why things skip around a little bit, that's why for this speed build. Now I'd put this red sofa in the living room area, or what I'm presuming to be the living room area. You could put your front door right here and make it like a fancy foyer area too. Just saying, there are a lot of options to do with that. But I have this really bright red. I made that overhead light red, so it's like I feel like we're gonna see some things with red, but I wanted to pair it with something a little more unexpected. And I love this paranormal fireplace. We get some fun eclectic color swatches for it, and I went with this blue. Now it's funny is way later when I was working on this build, I went back and changed that to a different swatch. So I actually don't keep it to the lighter blue. I go with more of the muted with the purpley tones, and I end up using that in the living room space, which I think is a really cool color scheme I otherwise would not have even tried to do if it weren't for this challenge. And it's just interesting to think like red, blue, and purple, right? And that's definitely workable and doable on the color wheel if you think of the color wheel, because it's right in sync with going around the color wheel. So I really like that. I don't know if that's an analogous color palette. I can't quite remember all of the terms for all the different color palettes and like how they work around in color theory. With red, blue, and purple, I thought it was really cool to do that. And I pull that into the kitchen with this backsplash that we get. And I think that's really pretty to put some light blues and purples there. And then this dining space is like, I was thinking was an area where we ground the space a bit more. So I just have a black paneling. I thought it was gonna be a little bit too much to also do something patterned or like a wallpaper or a tile or something to that effect. And we have those really pretty stained glass windows from Get Together. So I was like wanting to let the windows shine a bit more there than the walls. So I go with more of the red and black swatches in that area. And just keep in mind, I wanted it to be quirky. So you're gonna start to see me get weirder and weirder as this goes on. At first, I was trying to keep it a little bit more serious at the start, but I actually had a little bit more fun with it as I continue going with it. And here I am, I'm getting to this dreaded lava room. Now, I knew that I wanted that to be a kid's bedroom, and I think I might have given up on it. I think I did. I left and I was like, I'll deal with that later. So that's kind of funny. But I'm working on the foyer space now, and we got these cabinets from the Grange Mudroom kit. So I was like, oh, let's use those because we actually have a red swatch for them. So obviously red is like the main color, and I have like the blues throughout too. And then what I end up doing a bit later is I go back in and actually change the swatch of some of the objects I had already placed down and make them yellow. So I like to use yellow a bit more as an accent color. And the idea with this, which is a bit funny to think about, was I was thinking of McDonald's and how Ronald McDonald is a clown. And so I was trying to incorporate reds and yellows a bit more after I went back in and did it. That's a little bit of a clown reference within the house, not explicitly making it McDonald's like, but just putting some more yellow to go with the red. And that just made me think of that. So it was a fun nod to Ronald McDonald that I put in here. And then ironically, I ended up putting the memorial object we got in Life and Death underneath the tragic clown painting. I just thought that was a really funny nod that us simmers would get more so than like maybe newer players who don't know what that is or what that object is or what it's called or what it's used for. So I thought it was really funny to put that underneath there. Now I'm working on this bathroom, which was a little bit of an odd layout. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do here. And usually I like to put mirrors over my sinks, but I ended up putting this window. Again, I was trying to do some really interesting things in this house. And to me, that's an interesting choice because obviously in a bathroom, you like to have your mirror over your sink usually. So now you get to look straight outside, which might be a little weird to do in a bathroom too. You know, it's a little funky to do that. And then we end up doing something even funkier a bit later. I keep saying that, but trust me, we'll get there. Now I'm working on the primary bedroom. So with this, I had the rug from the half-baked shell challenge. Like everyone has to use this rug. So it has reds, yellows, and oranges, which goes with the rest of the house, honestly. So I ended up pulling this bed. I think that bed is from Island Living. And it worked perfectly, and it brought some brown tones in as well, which I really liked. So I thought that was a playful energy to bring into the room, and then I still wanted something to ground the space a bit more. So that's why I just opted to have the same flooring throughout the house for the most part with this black plank. And I put that ottoman at the foot of the bed with the red and white pattern with the diamonds because we have this like triangular shape on the bed at the headboard, and then we have the triangular tables from the bowling stuff pack, and then we also ended up getting the diamonds in the bathroom here. So I was trying to play with some fun shapes throughout the build too, which is why you'll see that with some of the tile work, some of the rugs that I chose, like the one I put under the mirror, that really fun, colorful, weird shaped rug. I was just trying to lean into things that I usually don't use, and then also just like swatches of things that maybe I do use regularly, but the swatches I don't use often. I think I said that wrong. I meant objects that I use regularly, but with different swatches. And then I think that the layout of that bathroom is actually pretty cool with the different nooks. There's a nook for that one vanity, there's a nook for the toilet, and then there's also that area over by the shower with the other vanity. Now we're getting into the child's bedroom. So initially, why I went with this wallpaper was because it looks like something's melting and dripping down. So I was thinking with the lava flooring, I was like, okay, maybe I can make this work and bring in more of the black gray tones like we have in the house. And the flooring can be the accent in this room. So everything else is dark and it makes the flooring pop a bit more. So that's what I tried to start off with. But what was bothering me was that I really like this divider and it had the orange on it and with a little bit of blue, which is kind of what we have in the other space. But it has a space theme, and then I was finding things that match the colors, and then we have the panda. It just seemed like things were all over the place, which for a kid's bedroom is fine. I think it's perfectly fine, especially for a kid's bedroom, to have things all over the place without a theme that don't make sense. Then I got the idea that, wait a second, dinosaurs went extinct from an asteroid, volcanoes. It just made me think of dinosaurs having a lava floor. And so I end up switching entirely and going into this dinosaur theme that I ended up like backtracking on. I was like, no, I don't want to go the dinosaur route. I'm going to try to make this work. And I spent way more time trying to make this work, and I wasn't liking it, and I wasn't liking the swatches of things, and I was trying to make this orange work with the flooring, but it was clashing. It was just like not working. So I delete everything. And then I keep having the dinosaur theme on the back of my mind. I was like, okay. So eventually what I end up doing is I go to the gallery and I just search dinosaur in the rooms section. And with that filter, I just wanted to find someone who had pulled a lot of dinosaur themed objects out for me. So I didn't have to filter through the catalog and like spend a lot of time trying to find everything. And I found a room, thankfully, to someone who put it on the gallery. And so that's what you see me pulling from now, is because I set a room outside that was just full of dinosaur themed objects. And So I go full in with this dinosaur theme at this point, and I'm just like, we're gonna do it. I think it's funny. It makes a reference to the dinosaurs becoming extinct from like a volcano or something, which I get it's more of an asteroid, but same thing, same type of thing. It works. So I put all sorts of fun clutter in here, literally using all of the dinosaur objects that I could find in the game. And I ended up having a blast. So this essentially ended up becoming my favorite room in the house, and I absolutely hated it at the start. So, I think it just goes to show that if you have a good theme, it can really make a difference in how much you enjoy working on a build. And I think that is what I like about designing in The Sims, essentially, at a high level, is that it makes it more fun to build with something in mind. And that's why we like to story tell a lot in my streams. And whenever I'm building, I like to have some type of backstory or a sim in mind. That way I can think of like what they like to do, what their likes, dislikes are, their hobbies, activities, how they interact in the game with other people. So it just makes it more fun and easier to build for someone in mind. I didn't have a sim in particular in mind for this, but I had a theme. So it ended up working out fine for that aspect. And it makes me think of my nephew a little bit. Whenever my nephew was little, he was obsessed with dinosaurs. So it also is just kind of a nice memory of me to like do a dinosaur themed child's bedroom in honor of him. So I had a lot of fun with it. I ended up going with this blue color on the walls, and I bring that in with the rug on the floor as well, but it's mostly oranges and blues with some red tones as well. So I put a lava lamp in there, just as a reference to the flooring, and I make all the lighting like a reddish orange tone, which I think makes it really, really fun. Like the floor actually is lava. I know a lot of us played that game as a kid, or we had to have, like I'm sure at some point all of us have played that game. I feel like you could not have had a good childhood without playing The Floor is Lava and jumping on things and getting in trouble from your parents from jumping on things. Now, you might have seen it. It was pretty quick, but yes, if you're wondering, I did add a door to go outside in the bathroom. Now, that was a choice. It was a fun choice because, again, I wanted to do some unexpected things in this house. So you do have to walk through the bathroom to get to the outside. And then leaning more, as I said, I get like a bit funkier in this design for this house as it goes. So I am now creating a tent. I'm using a lot of the new Adventure Awaits canvassing for the wallpapers. And I make this tent outside and just pretend like we maybe have a side business where people come here. And I put a mirror maze in the back. Now, I don't know about y'all if y'all have seen these in real life, but it's quite fun. I was trying to do the Storybook Nursery Kit thing here to make it look more tinty. It wasn't working. I was like thinking I could size it up and make it work. So that's what I was doing there. But I am currently in my maze era. I don't know what it is about mazes, but I have done a big hay bale maze on our pumpkin patch lot. And now I did a mirror maze here. But I just think of like fun houses and like clowns. It's just like it goes together. So I thought it would be fun to have a mirror maze that a clown hosts, especially like during this time of year. People can come pay money and go through the mirror maze and get completely freaked out and lost. So I just think that's a really fun vibe to have in here. It was a little bit tricky with the mirrors. I will say mirrors can start to glitch a good bit when you put millions of them. So I would just warn you. I don't know if downloading this is going to mess anything up, but just forewarning, like it might mess up your computer trying to download this from the gallery and put it on the lot. What you'll see is I had gone through and completely placed most of the mirrors at least, and then I was like, wait, let's get the lit up one with the red lighting. So I go back and completely redo the whole thing again. I probably should have cut that out of the video, but I don't know. Sometimes I think I get comments from people where they really like seeing the process, even things that I change or go back and redo. So I don't know, for me personally, when I like watching speed builds, I love seeing the full process and like how they think through things. And I feel like sometimes when speed builds are over edited, you miss the struggle. And I think the struggle is what makes them more fun to watch, because it's like, who just sits down and cranks out a build without deleting things or redoing things? And I feel like that's what most of the speed builds I watch or have seen is where people just like edit it to cut out all of the mess ups and things. And it's just like, they just sat down and just cranked out this build with no issue whatsoever. And that's not really always the case. So I don't know. I'm on a tangent now about that, but I think it's really fun to see the process of things. So I wanted to leave that in, and especially with it being a shell challenge. I think it's good for y'all to see how I also find them challenging and struggle with them and have moments where it's like, oh, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do here, or I have to redo this because of this. And I don't know. I think it makes it more fun to see how we all struggle together with these types of challenges. What you'll see here in the foyer too, I'm going back now and I'm getting more in my clutter phase. So generally I like to go through, lay out the house, and then that way I know where my big pieces of furniture are going to be and get the idea of the layout, the color scheme, and then I go back in and clutter it up, because I think it's overwhelming to try to do all the furniture and clutter at one time, because there are so many options and so many combinations of things. So it's like easier if you start with something as a whole, like looking down, like these are the colors I'm going to use. Let's see what I can use clutter to now accent with it. And you can see now here the fireplace, I went with the darker blue swatch, and I think it looks way, way better, especially with the wallpaper. So we have some really cool like blue purpley colors with this red that pops off that I think is a really fun color combination. But what I was saying before I went on my tangent was, in the foyer we have some clown shoes, so that's why I sized up some of those, and they're already big to begin with, so I was like, let's just lean into it, make them even bigger. And then I start putting like a megaphone and party hats, and I think of like a clown having props, so I start putting all this random stuff that might seem like toys or just random objects. I put the bowling balls in the living room with bowling pins, and it makes me think of, when clowns juggle bowling pins or something like that. So I was really having fun with thinking through how I could incorporate objects that clowns would use. And just when you think of a clown and like where they would live, I just feel like it would be a really fun space, eclectic with lots of things all over the place. So, I get that not all clowns just want their house to look like a clown like room of some sort or a fun house necessarily, but obviously with The Sims you just gotta go with the flow and go with the chaos. It makes it more fun to build in that aspect. Now, I went back and forth so much on this one object. I was really wanting to use this fuchsia color because we have the bowling balls that kind of have that color, and we have this overhead light that also has that color. I was like, is that doing too much? Because we already have blue, red, purple. Do I really want this pinky purple like neon color as well? And I decided to not make it so out there. So I toned it down and went with more of a neutral color. But this is where you can see I pull that light and I was like, oh wait, that one swatch would work so well with that giraffe swatch. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do it. So I ended up putting the cozy kitsch light, and it has this really nice yellow, and then I was like, wait a second. And that's where I had the light bulb moment of pairing more of the yellow in the house. So from that point forward, you'll see me maybe change some swatches to yellow or grab some more yellow objects, hence the yellow plant right there. So I ended up changing the accent chair in the living room to yellow to make it pop a little bit more instead of that blue, because I was like initially going with a more of a monochromatic color scheme in there. Anyway, I just wanted to pop the yellow a bit more. So now with this kitchen space, what I end up doing is I grab a few appliances and objects that are yellow to make it pop and come through the whole house a bit more. So it's not so random and feels so random that it's only in this one area of the house. And it ties it in, I think, a bit better whenever I do that. So I start cluttering up the kitchen. I grabbed the new kettle that we got. If you had the pre-order, you order it in enough time. I think you can still get it right now with Adventure Awaits. It's like one of the early access objects. Really cute. I love it. So I made that yellow. We have a tea area. Now, one thing you'll see with that tea canister object I put at the end is polka dotted. I do use a lot of the polka dots or like spotted objects throughout the build, inside and outside from this point forward. And again, with the tragic clown painting, you'll see that it's polka dotted. There are circles all around the clown in that picture. So I tried to reference as many things and the colors from that picture as possible in order to make it really feel like it came alive with that build. And that's why I also put the pom-poms on the wall over around the bathroom door, which is a choice to say nonetheless, but it was just circular and it was like a fun object to have. So essentially this would be a really fun entertainment space for you to host people, and then like you could even just have people want their birthday parties at your house because it's so fun instead of you having to go to their birthday party. So it could be a space where you rent out your own house for people to have their parties there for kids or something. I don't know, maybe that sounds weird. It does kind of sound weird, but it would be interesting to do something like that or have a space like that where people and kids would want to have their parties. Now I'm starting to work on the outside a bit more from this point forward, and I am putting this custom stone walkway. And when I say custom and why I say custom is because I am playing with how it overlaps. So in The Sims, especially whenever we're working with rugs or anything that goes on the floor like this, typically, not always, but typically the last object you move ends up moving to the top. So if they're layered, if you layer rugs and you move one rug, it automatically becomes the top one. Not always. There are some where that rule does not apply. But I was wanting to do a really cool design where it looked like almost masonry with like bricks down the sidewalk, and then I take them and layer them all the way around toward the back and have it be like a smaller tile on top of the larger tile. So I just take it and size it down one time and layer it on top. And it gives it a little bit more dimension to it than just a slab of rock. So I always try to do something interesting if I'm going to use those objects, because I just don't like the way it looks otherwise. The only time I might not do that is if I actually have green space like on the grass between them and don't put them like right up next to one another. Now, one thing that I thought was really fun to use in this house too were these talking johns, the toilets, because I don't use these hardly ever. And I was like, this would be the house where you would want to use that. So I ended up putting those in both bathrooms just because I don't get to use it super often. So I was just like, let's put them in both. And then I grabbed, I think that's from Get Famous. I can't quite remember, the star mirror. But I was like, I would never use this hardly in any other build. I don't think I've ever used that. And I was like, this is the build to put it. So we put it in the bathroom there, again with the red accents, just playing on that a bit more. And now we're working on the primary bedroom. I went back and forth a little bit with the shades and what I wanted to use. And I came across this yellow swatch of the paranormal curtains. I was like, that might be fun to use because now we can get a little more pop of yellow off that red wall. Again, with the red and yellow vibes, now that I had changed my mind to that. And then I put the other curtain over the bed and the headboard. So we have a couple of different curtains in there, and I think that just lends more to the playful vibe of the atmosphere in that room. And then that's where I was like starting to put some of the fun objects around the house. I have the like little cracker thing that you pop open, the holiday cracker thing. Put some bubbles. I like put this little helmet thing in here. I was trying to find some really odd objects I just never use, and I eventually find this drone object to put on the shelf too, and I end up sizing that down. But I was trying to find anything and everything. I found this throne that I was like, oh man, that's really fun to use. I need to remember we have that, but we do have a really cool debug throne object. I came across this painting as well, and I don't think I've ever used this painting. I was like, this is the house to put crazy things in, so we have to put this huge painting in this room. So I ended up doing that. I put that like wormhole looking thing on the wall in there. This is where it really starts to come together and you get the full aspect of it being like a clown fun house type vibe. I tried to put as many interesting objects as I could. I still wanted it to be somewhat tasteful, which I know sounds ridiculous, but it's just like, I don't want to just put anything and everything, random objects. I still want the colors to go really well together. I still want the vibe to be there. So, you know, I didn't want it to be completely off the wall. Just anything can go here, anything and everything. I wanted it to still look nice. And I think I achieved it. There's still some questionable things that I did, but I think it comes across the way that I want it to, and that the person living here just likes to have fun and is not afraid to use things in a different way or even just have certain types of objects in their house. And I think that even just goes with, I put that storybook nursery kit light in the other bathroom, which I think was a choice to put the little chandelier there. And it's red and gold, and I ended up using the little bag from Storybook Nursery too that has the bottle with it and everything. I was like, maybe that's our clown bag. So I just wanted like a big purse bag looking thing, and I put that by the front door. And thankfully the bottle isn't too far away from it to where I could actually clip the bottle inside the wall so you can't see the bottle from it. So it just looks like a bag. And then I put that like alert light in the kid's bedroom. And I thought that was really fun. Just like, oh, we have like a volcano erupting or something. So it's like a red alert light. And it just goes with the vibe because I already had the lighting as red. So I was just like, let's just use that and put that in there. And so red was like the choice of accent color in every room. I have red in every single room somewhere. That was like the one color I wanted to incorporate everywhere. And part of that was just because from the start of the challenge with the shell itself, without you doing anything, I had the red light and I had the red sofa. So the vibe was already there for that, and that's what I decided to do and like run with it a little bit. Now I'm working on this little bathroom. I wanted something on the wall. I always struggle with wall decor in bathrooms, and I was trying to find something fun and cool to put, but it was also really high up on the wall, so I just ended up going for that fitness stuff mirror set that we have. I was just like, let's just do that. We'll put some mirrors. We have like a whole mirror maze in the back, so maybe we just really like having mirrors. So I have a lot of mirrors in this house and put those everywhere. Now we're finally getting to the outside. Now, this is where things still continue to change quite a bit. I was really leaning into my weird era for this. I ended up getting the rug from Adventure Awaits, which is like the archery target rug, or that's what I think it is anyway. And I put that on the front just because it was fun vibes. Again, just trying to carry in some weird, quirky, funky things. I get the polka dotted planters out by the door. And I was just trying to think of some really odd things that we could use around the house to make this house stand out and be a bit eclectic, but I also didn't want it, again, to be completely crazy outside. So I think I balance it pretty well with some of the landscaping I use. I use a lot of greenery, actually, for the landscaping with some select few types of plants that I put everywhere, which makes it pop out a good bit more. And then I did this in the botanical garden that we did recently, where I put a platform under this fountain. I love this fountain. The problem with this fountain is that it's very short to the ground. So if you want to do landscaping around it, it covers it up a pretty good bit. And I wanted to have it be more on display. So I ended up putting the fun frog fountains all around it. So it probably looks ridiculous in live mode, but I wanted that to be there. And I think it's really fun. You get a lot of colors right off the bat from that. And again, with the elephant fountain itself being orange, I wanted the red and orange tones to be like the primary outside. That changes actually quite a bit though whenever I come across some other colors. And that was just my starting point because I had randomly placed that red flower bush that I just used out in the front. So again, that was something that y'all couldn't move. You have to do something with it. You could cover it up. Like, that's always an option. And then I had these 3 random patches in the back, and I left that for y'all to have to work with as well. I ended up just rounding it out into a landscaping area around our like tarot card reading tent. And I think that's a really fun vibe as well to have outside of this build. So like I said, I used a lot of greenery. Don't let it fool you though, because I start putting some really fun things around here, like these plants right here. Again, just circles, spheres. I was really trying to play on that a lot. That painting doesn't have a whole lot to it. It has an animal balloon in it, but we don't have anything like that. We have balloons, but I didn't want to put party balloons around the house. I don't know. That just felt weird to me. I mean, granted, this whole build is weird, but that felt extra weird, and it didn't seem to really fit the vibe that I was going for. So I do have some fun balloon lights, the balloon light stands that we have in the game. I put red ones out by the tent, and that's just a reference to it because of Pennywise and the red balloon that is associated with him. So I tried to have a couple of nods to clowns and like clown references in real life, and that otherwise would not come across, I don't think, unless I'm like explaining it in the speed build video here. So that's why I like doing these. I like to explain my thought process and what I was thinking. So I've been yapping enough, and we were about to wrap up the outside, so let's just go check out the build. This is the build in all its glory. And as you can see, I definitely went more with like purpley pink colors outside, a bit more than I had originally. And the idea with that, if you remember in the living room space, I went from like a red to red, blue, purple situation. I was like, let's bring more of the purple outside too. So that's what I ended up doing. Now, I had a lot of fun with this. Like I said, I did some things I usually don't do. And we ended up like putting these, we got in Adventure Awaits, and I was like, this is a really fun vibe to have outside of a clown house, I feel like, with the landscaping. So I put those, and I put the jellyfish lights outside, which are really cute at nighttime. I love how they glow. They look really, really cool. We have our fountain area over here. I put a little elephant topiary on top of a ball. I thought that was really cute for the circus theme. And then I have a sign over here, and that's just like the hobby sign. It's like the meetup information. It's just interactive, so you just have to ignore that. I was using that as like a sign for our business back here. But we have the tarot booth. I just put like a lot of lush landscaping. Y'all know how I am about my landscaping. And then these are the lights that I was talking about with the reference to Pennywise with those red balloon lights that you can see at nighttime here. And then the mirror maze is literally just that. It's just a mirror maze. I didn't want to put like a lot of objects in this because that makes it easier to get through. Like, mirror mazes are only fun when you literally just have mirrors inside. You should not have any landmarks or anything like that. I think that's what would make this really fun in real life. Then what I ended up doing on this side, we put the in-ground jacuzzi. So really fun space. I realized later when I was doing the inside, I was like, I don't really have a TV anywhere, and we don't have a computer either, which is kind of a negative in my sense for fun at least, but there are so many things that is nice to do if you have a computer. But I was like, let's at least put a TV outside, and we'll put it outside in this jacuzzi space. So I built this like little gazebo area for that, and I think that's a really fun vibe. And then again, with some fun, interesting choices, I have an outdoor kitchen space over here, and I put these partitions from Machino stuff. I used these recently in a candy shop build, and they work really well sized down as little dividers or containers for your candies. So I wanted to use that, and we have this red frame with the blue polka dots. I was like, this is perfect for the theme here, and I put the stripies up here with the awning. And I just get circus vibes from this completely. So I love the space outside. I think it's so fun. I have some fun objects as well. I put the confetti cannon outside, and then we have like a really fun eclectic space out in the back porch area with the polka dots again with the red and yellow colors. I put a bird bath with some planters over there, and then I put more of the polka dotted planters there. So just leaning into that as much as I could. So that is the outside at a glance. So let's go ahead and head inside. As we come in through the door here, we get into our foyer space. We have a place here to put our stuff, and then we have our tragic clown painting, all sad and stuff right there. Poor thing. I put the little mushroom too right there, the little polka dots. I just tried to do that as much as I could. I put the fun light. There's the bag I was talking about, so we pretend like that's his working bag. And then you get into here. I don't know why the roofing is clipping in like that, so you just have to ignore that. But once we come into here, this is like such a fun vibe. I love the theme in this area. I think this turned out way better than I was expecting. Is it weird? Yes, but I think it's good weird. I really do think it's good weird. I'm still a little iffy on the yellow chair, but I do think it brings in more yellow. Otherwise, this whole area would be a bit dark, and this just being yellow would be weird. So I think we had to make that yellow to tie that in a little bit better. And then there's the bowling balls with the bowling pins. I just like put some fun objects up here too. And then we have the dining space, fun, beautiful lighting. Really fun to have that in the nook too, I think. And then our kitchen space over here. I put the little aprons on the side of the fridge. We have our yellow retro looking microwave, the yellow candy maker, the yellow tea kettle. So again, just trying to go with yellow vibes. I didn't actually clutter this kitchen as much as I usually do. Y'all should be very proud of me. That was a very hard decision for me to do. I wanted it to be functional on this one cabinet. I wanted to keep this one relatively empty. But we have our little elephant tea kettle as well. And then we get into this bathroom space. So this is the weird one with the door to go to the back porch. So again, I feel like that's a really fun, funky type decision to do. Who would want to have to walk through a bathroom and then also have a window like this directly open to your bathroom? Now, I did keep it somewhat private, like with the shower and the divider. Toilet is very much visible, but you know, it's a weird house. You just have to deal with it. Then we have our, I'm going to save the kids' bedroom for last, but we have our primary bedroom here. So I actually think this bedroom turned out really cool with the color scheme. I don't hate it at all. I would have never done this type of color scheme before, I don't think. So this is why I love these challenges. I wanted to put some like fun, quirky things and dorky things with it being the clown. I don't know why, but this like little sword thing on the wall makes me think like the clown's a dork or something. Something to that effect. And then I like layered this partition thing behind and clipped it into the wall with the painting. I wasn't liking how blank it looked with just the painting on the wall. This was before I added the light here and the plant. I was trying to put things on the side and it wasn't looking right, so I added that behind it. I think that's a really cool idea. And then we have our bathroom space off of that. Very simple, not much to see in here. I didn't really do a whole lot in the bathroom in this house. I tried to keep it relatively simple. And then we can go into our kids' bedroom space. So I love this room. I think this turned out to be easily my favorite room in the whole house. But we have like a fun reading area over in the corner here, some books. We have toys everywhere. We have clutter everywhere. The bed is all dinosaur themed with the footprints and everything. I love how this turned out. It's so cute. It is so cute. And then just from a top-down view, you can see what the house looks like. So I really think the color scheme carries through really well. Not that it has to, but I basically had the same color scheme both inside and outside. The only difference was that in the front yard, I incorporated more of like the purpley color in the wallpaper here and brought that outside a bit more. I thought that made it more fun. So I'm putting this on the gallery as the not so tragic clown home because the idea was that I was trying to make it a fun space for a tragic clown so he's not so sad anymore. And then if you want to find the shell in the gallery, again, it's called the Tragic Clown Shell. And then you just have to use hashtag half-baked-clown. That way I can find it easily. But this is the shell at a glance and what you have. So I did have some random furniture pieces and floorings and things like that. Again, we're going to tour them on October 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern time whenever I stream. Would love to have you follow me over on Twitch if you haven't already. I have that link down below. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you did, if you stuck with me. Like I said, we do regular shell challenges, but it's been a while since we've done a half-baked shell challenge. So we wanted to do this, and that was a redemption from the streamathon that we did recently. So thank you all for participating in that and selecting to do this because this was a lot of fun. Special shout out to my Soul supporters. I appreciate you all so much. And if you'd like to check out the last shell challenge that I did, I'll put that over here for you. With that, I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll see you in the next one. Okay? Bye. I'm seriously so excited to see what y'all do with this. I surprised myself with what I did with it, so I know y'all are gonna do some incredibly fun things.